Evening, everybody. Just checking that everybody can hear me. If you just let me know, somebody in the chat, that'd be great. Thanks, Tony. I'm assuming that thumbs up and the B, I mean that all's good on the sound. That is my one nightmare, as you all know. So on tonight's session, folks, it's there's 3 flies that I've chosen to show tonight. We've got this little beauty here, which is a size 10 trout Pinfry pattern with lots of different techniques, but you can use as many or as little as you like. Once we've got that underway, we're going to have a look at a dry fly tonight, and the dry fly is this little beauty, which is called the Dyret. Okay, lots of nice little techniques in this one, including a bit of deer hair work and some palmering, but also we're going to be trimming off the underside here because it's going to sit in the surface, beetle-like, spent, done, that sort of idea. And then our final pattern for this evening is one that really is very productive, particularly if you're stalking particularly big trout. So we've got this little beauty here. It's tungsten head. It's got squirrel body and a partridge hackle, and it's a really effective nymph. You can change the collar out for different colors. You can leave the feather out, the partridge out completely, and just have it as a more of a check nymph style, but is a very, very, very productive fly, and not just on still waters, but on rivers as well. Okay, so first fly we're going to tackle tonight is probably the one that's going to take us the longest to tie this evening, which is this little fly here. It is literally, the length of my forefinger. It takes techniques from the saltwater and predator world and brings them into the trout fishing world. It's going to be great for pinfry feeding fish, and particularly sort of into September, October, and later on. But I can imagine it working really well on an intermediate line, fished relatively deep, kept on the same plane, and just drawn through as a point fly. I can imagine there being some aggressive smacks from some of the bigger predatorial fish. So how do we go about tying this particular fly? Well, we're going to start off first of all here. I'm actually going to tie it on a camisan hook. This is a trout deep water nymph hook, size 10. It's got a longer shank on it, which allows us to pack lots of material in. It is barbed on this particular hook. So in it goes, put it in the vise. And I'm actually going to use some, what have I done with it? I'm actually going to use some, there it is, some Semperfly white nano silk as my thread for this. And I'm going to start off by just putting a layer of thread down. And I'm going to take that down to the barb. Sorry, not the barb, down to the point of the hook. I'm not going to go any further than that just for the moment. And I'm going to bring it all the way back up. Now, what I am then going to do is we're going to put an underbody on this fly. You don't have to put an underbody on, but I do like to have something there so that when the fly is in water and some of these materials become quite translucent, that we actually can see the underbody. And a bit of flash never hurt anybody. So I'm going to use some of this peacock and orange mylar, size 12 for this particular pattern. I'm just going to take off a strip. There it is. It's dual-sided, and I use the both sides for various patterns. But for this one, I'm looking for the sort of the peacock colouring. There it is, the peacock colouring, to give it a bit of a flash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie it with the orange side facing me. I'm just going to lay it onto the side of the hook, and just catch it in. Oh, and pull it out. Just catch it in. Do that one a bit again. Just going to catch it in. Put my thumb on it. Thumbnail. Just catch it in a couple of turns. Take my tie-in thread back down. And I can take it just that little bit further now towards the barb, and then bring it all the way back up. I'm going to wind the mylar a couple of turns just there at the end, just to get it started, keep it flat. I'm going to take it all the way up. Don't worry too much about uneven turns on this, because it is going to be the underbody. I'm going to take it all the way up. Making sure I've covered as much as possible. I'm just going to tie that down. Snip that off. And then just tidy up this end here. And then I'm going to take my tying thread about halfway back, and then take it back up again, back down again, just to form an underbody of thread so that any materials I put on there are going to grip far better. Now, for the tails and the body for this, I'm actually going to use some mallard flank. It's a feather I've got quite a lot of, and I've bought lots of it in the past, and I don't use it enough. But I thought we'd use it for this particular pattern. Now, this is all lovely, nice and long, and we're going to use those attributes of the feather to really accentuate the shape of the pinfry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tip here, I'm going to hold it. I'm just going to draw all these lovely long bits back, like so, and I'm left with the tip. What I'm going to do then is I'm just going to nip that out. There we go. And then if I put it all back up, you can see that we've got a V shape cut in. Now that's what we're going to use to form our body. And I'm just going to take all of these fluffy bits off because I don't need those. There we go. Get rid of those into my waste pot. And then we've got a fully usable feather. Now what I'm looking to do is I'm going to place it over the hook shank. But before I do that, I'm just going to manipulate it a little bit in my fingers and just push the barbules of the feather on either side just down, forming almost a cloak. And it just breaks them a little bit and just pushes them either side of the shaft of the feather. Okay. And then I'm just going to place it on the top. Now this is much longer than I'm going to need, but I'm going to place it on the top. I want the sides to just come down over the sides. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to put 1, 2 turns in, and then I'm going to put a third actually. There we go. And then I'm just going to draw everything back. Just keep going until I've got a tail section that I'm happy with the length. Now, I'm sort of looking for an equal length of the body to the tail. You can go longer, you can go shorter if you like. And this is worth just taking a moment just to manipulate it and using the structure of the feather itself. You're going to get these little bits that are going to stick out. Don't worry too much about those. You know, there's no point in fighting the material. Work with it. Use the heat from your fingers just to manipulate it, and we'll get the proportions as we want them. And then when I'm happy, I'm going to put some lock-in turns in. And I'm going to be quite firm. It's one of the reasons I'm using the nano silk. It's because I'm trapping it right down. And you can see the underbody under there as well. You see what I mean? You could put a little tail of flash material in there as well, or even some bucktail. I haven't chosen to do that this time. And then I've got this piece here now, and this is the bit that's waste. So I'm just going to come in, and I'm going to carefully, at about 45 degrees, just nip that off. And then that leaves me with this nice taper here. And I'm just going to take a moment just to tidy that up. Now you can put as much detail into this as you like. I'm just going to go further back just to trap it even further down. There we go. And we've got the start of our tail. So it's got this beautiful barring. Don't worry about these bits that are sticking up. We can deal with those later. They'll all form part of the body. We've got this beautiful barring, and we've got that flashy underbody there when it's needed. Now, the second phase of this, I'm going to go through the same process, but this time we're going to turn it upside down. Okay, because I want an underbody, and we're going to go through the same process. So I'll do this one quite quickly. So I'm going to take the tip off the feather. There we go. Get rid of the fluffy bits. Now, I'm not too worried about having lots of feather for the underside. I want it to be smaller, less intrusive. Gonna use my fingers just to push down the sides. Like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and use the natural V there and just position the feather just on the underside, forming it round. I'm going to hold it in place. 1, 2, 3 turns just to hold it. And then I'm going to pull it back. And I want it to be slightly shorter than the feather on the top. So we're going to give it a taper. There we go. If you have them all at the same length, you lose a lot of the shape. And then I'm going to put a couple more turns in, lock it in place. And as we did before, I have this waist end here. I'm just going to cut that off and then tidy up. Now, tidying up, going back and forth, is really important because it gets rid, or hopefully gets rid of any steps that would be produced, and get this nice taper here, which we can work with. And just take a moment, just manipulate it so that you can get that nice taper flowing in there. Okay. Now at this point, a little bit of flash would be quite good. So for this, I'm going to use some crystal flash, favorite crystal flash. And it's up to you how many strands you can put in. I quite like to put 3 on either side. But actually, for this one, I think I'm going to go, I think I'm going to go 3. It's enough. It doesn't overload the actual fly. There we go. And this is going to give it the pretext of a lateral line running down the side. What you could do here as well, if you wanted to put more in, rather than getting some more pieces, you double it up. So if we went 6 on either side, I just double it up, and there it goes. So let's try that on this one. I've not done it on this one before. I've done it with a couple, and I'm just going to take tie in thread halfway back down that head section, and I'm going to come in. I'm just going to come in and take it over onto the top so we're trapped in, and then pull it back with my fingers so it's along the middle of the feather. Oh, just lost one. Come here. There we go. Have a mind of their own, these materials. It's gone again. There it is. Just move my fingers up to trap it so it doesn't do that again. There we go. Don't worry if you get the odd bit that goes slightly off. And then I'm just going to loosely tie down to trap it in place. All the way back. There we go. And then back up again. There we go. Now for these, I like to have them just about the length of the main body and tail, because of course the lateral line wouldn't go any further than that. So I'm just going to judge that, bring it up, judge it, and give it a clip. And then just place those. Just take a moment, use my nail just to position those on either side. There we go. Now, the main part of the body here is another mallard feather. So using lots of mallard here. Now, this is an olive mallard. This time I'm not going to cut the V section out. I want that because these have got really thick stems. I want to tie this in at the tip. So I'm going to find the tip at this end. There we go. I'm going to draw all parts of the feather back very gently because you don't want to disturb it from the shaft of the feather. I give it a lick, and then I'm going to place it in and tie it in as I would with any other feather, and just secure it down along the length. Clip that. Bring it down to we're about 1, 2, 3 mils away from the eye, and then I've got my hackle here. I'm going to draw everything back. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to palmer along this section here with the mallard feather, and what that's going to do is it's going to form a staggered cloak of feathers that are going to give a representation of the taper of the fish. Don't worry if you can see the tie-in silk underneath. Keep brushing everything back as you make a turn. It will try and turn on you because that stem is very thick and has a mind of its own, but just keep drawing everything back, just taking your time, putting in quite a few turns, as many as you can with that beautiful feather. And they are stunningly beautiful feathers. Mallard flanks. You can see you've got very thick stem we're working with now. So it's not going to break on you. Just going to draw everything back. Get the odd bit of feather that just doesn't want to go where you want it. We'll deal with that in a moment. I'm going to take it down. I can just get that final bit in. Just finish there. And lock it down with a couple of turns. It's a very thick stem, so you need more turns on this than you normally would. Trim that off and just manipulate everything back. So far, so good. And then we're just going to tidy up this little section here. Now, when I put this together, I was thinking of a roach. or some sort of little creature like that. So came in with some this dyed French partridge as the next feather. Um, I dyed it myself, which is a very simple process. Just need a bit of patience. You get these beautiful colours that you generally can't buy, or you don't want lots of them. You just do a small patch. And again, I'm going to tie it in at the tip. 1, 2, 3. Draw it back. Just tidy up at this end. Got a stem here that I'm going to try and get rid of. There we go. There we go. I'm just going to nip that section off. Now this time I'm not palmering. I'm just going to tie it in as a normal 1, 2, 3. Now you could use the whole thing if you like. We want to make it a little bit understated, so I'm just going to finish here. 1, 2. Nip that out. I'm just going to come in, draw everything back. And then just, as we've done before, just come in and tie everything down. And I'm actually going to go over the stems that I've tied in with my tying thread to trap them down, but it also pushes them backwards. There we go. Here we go, like that. There's one thing I would say about this is that that olive mallard feather maybe was a little bit too long, but the fish won't care. By the time I've finished manipulating this, it will all be good. I'm just going to bring it back. There we go. I'm not too worried about fully covering all of this with the tying thread, because I'm just going to hold it there. I'm just going to whip finish that off. That head looks a bit of a mess, but that's okay. We're going to tidy it up in a second. There we go. And then I'm just going to clip that. And then I'm going to take some Semperflight micro glinting pearl, which I've got on another bobbin. Now, for this, I'm going to use this to give it a bit of bling at the front. And that's why I wasn't too worried about the nano silk. Take my time, working forwards and backwards, just covering up any color that I don't want to have out of place. I don't want to form any steps. And there we go. Just unclip and cut that bit off. And this micro glint, it's very strong, so you can whip finish with it. 1, 2, 3. And there we have it. And just cut that off. And there we have our bait fish style pattern. Now it's not quite finished yet, because what I need to do is put in, well, you see on the other one, I put in some eyes, which we can do. So I've got these 4mm eyes here. I like a big eye on these. I just think that it's an extra trigger point. You don't have to put eyes. You could leave it like that. You could just varnish the head and fish it as it is. It would be absolutely perfect. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't try and mess around with a little bit of resin. So I'm gonna use some Golf Thin Man. Yeah, here it is, Golf Thin Man. Um, just on the head here. There we go. Now the Thin Man will absorb into the feathers, which is absolutely fine. You notice I'm holding it all back, so I'm just going to manipulate this so I get it into the base of those feathers there and across the head. There we go. And before, don't let go. Give it a zap. Let it cure 10 seconds or so. And it also starts to give the fly or the fish representation. I'm just going to turn it over and do the same underneath. Now this time I'm going to apply it, the resin, directly to the wand. It's easier to manipulate here, holding everything down. I'm just going to dab it in place and just move it around, making sure I don't get it in that eye. Because once you get resin in there and it hardens, that's it, game over. You're never going to get it out. Just taking my time. There we go. Take the resin out of the UV light, zap away. Okay, and we got our first stages there of the head. Now for the eyes, these eyes are adhesive. There you can see I put them on my hand here. They are adhesive, but they're also a real pain to try and get into place. So I'm just going to turn the fly on the side, and I'm going to take a little blob of resin. Now I'm not going to put it right on the head. I'm going to put the blob of resin just behind the head on the feather, and then I'm going to take a needle. Ooh, and I'm going to position the eye in place. I'm going to give it a little press down with the needle. You'll find if you use your finger, you're going to resin your finger to the material. So I'm just going to press it down with the needle and give it a zap. In place like that. And then repeat on the other side. Now you don't have to do this. It's quite nice just to show it though. And again, and for the second one, I'm going to place it on, but before I zap it, I'm going to check that it's not all offset and all over the place compared to the other side. I want it opposite, and it takes a little bit of adjusting. So I'm just going to bring it in. There we go. Now for this bit, I'm going to trust that I've got my hand in the right place. And I'm not going to stick myself to the resin. But basically, the techniques we've used here on a lot of these materials are exactly the same for making most saltwater flies. So don't, get out there and try a few different flies, just to, if anything, just to move skills along. I'm now going to move to the classic resin because I want a bit thicker. If I've got any left, yeah, I do. And I'm just going to fill in the gap at the top between the eyes. take my wand, manipulate it across the head. And then give it a zap. I really like the way the resin magnifies the material underneath. So if you've got the micro glint, which is glinting anyway, when it's magnified, it magnifies the glint on the head. And the micro glint comes in all sorts of different colours: oranges, reds, greens, silvers. It's a material I often use on the underbodies of some of my saltwater flies. And then I'm just going to do the same. Ooh. Looks like somebody's going to be buying some new resin this week. There we go. Little drop. Making sure I don't get any near that eye. I'm just going to come in with the wand and manipulate the resin around. A little check. Let gravity pull it down. Pretty happy with that. And give it a blast. Here we go. There we go. Now, you could carry on and you could resin over the eyes. I don't see the need to do that here. What I do like doing is just going over the resin work with a bit of Sally Hansen, hard as nails, just to protect it and just to protect those eyes. There we go. Just running it across. And there we have it. I suppose it's our Mallard baitfish Pinfry sort of pattern. What you can do, if you find that you've got these and you just think they're a little bit long, I'm just going to bring my very sharp scissors in and just run them like that. I'm not cutting, just pushing, just to trim them down a little bit. Same on the underside. Same on this side. Holding them tight and just running it down. There we go. Give more of a tapered look. And there we have it. French partridge and mallard Pinfry baitfish for trout. Okay. Thanks, Pete. Hope you all like that one. Give it a try. Imagine that really enticing a few fish. I'm going to give it a shot over the next few weeks. Let's just put that to dry over here. Oh, just dropped it. To dry over here. Okay, so our second pattern for this evening is the Dyret, which is a dry fly. And this is one that yeah, there it is. This is one that I like to use, and it sits in the surface film, and it represents an awful lot of different olives and even beetles, ultimately. And I'm going to tie this on a size 12 barbless dry hook from Sprite. Here we go. There we go. And I'm going to use a brown wax thread from Semperfly. And this is, a very simple fly to tie. It's got some materials in it that you do need to put a bit of wax on your thread to help grip. I'm just going to come in about a mil or two from the eye. Just going to take a tiny thread all the way down. I want to put a nice underbody of tying thread down because I want the materials that I'm going to use to have a surface that they can bind to, lock on to. I'm going to bring my thread all the way back up. Now, for the tail and the underbody here, I'm going to use some deer hair. So it sort of looks picricky color there, but it's actually a golden olive, um, and it's nature's spirit, if I remember correctly. I'm going to take a small pinch of deer. It's always better to take a little bit more than you need. And if I was to push them out and lay them flat, it's probably going to take up about a centimeter on a ruler. So I'm just going to take those and trim those off. There we go. And I'm just going to get rid of any underfur and any really short pieces of the. I'm just going to hold it by the tips. So there's a couple of really short pieces there. And if I just gently pull back, you can see that I've pulled back some really short pieces that I don't want. I'm just not going to do anything at all. It'll be really hard to tie in. And then I'm just going to transfer that to my stacker. In it goes. All aligned. Open it up. And we've got our tips aligned. Just have a quick little look. If there's any that really are out of place, just take a moment and just take them out rather than having to cut them later. Now, I don't want a really long tail here. I want it quite short and stubby. Oh, there's an errant piece there. Really short and stubby. So I'm just going to measure it up. And I want it about half the length of the body itself for the tail. So there it is. Okay. And then I'm just going to position my fingers, pinch the deer hair at the top here. And then I'm going to take a turn and up. And I'm not going to put any pressure on it at the moment. I'm just going to pinch it. And then I'm going to put another turn, but I'm not going to go around the hook. I'm just going to go around the deer hair and pull it in. And then I'm just going to pull it down. Now, what that does is it and hopefully stops it spinning around the hook shank. You get the odd bit that's going to decide that it wants to go where you don't want it to, but take your time. And then I'm just going to take quite wide turns. 1, 2, but notice I'm holding the tail really tightly. 3, 4, and then double up at the end. Put a third turn in. There we go. And you can see that we've got it positioned where we want it positioned on the top of the shank. Take a moment just to make sure you're happy. And then quite wide turns backwards in a crisscross effect, tying everything down. Finish at the top. And now tighter turns, heading down to compress the body down. And finish. Now I'm going to leave these pieces here, all nice and long. I don't want to do anything with those. I can already see that I've got a little bit of something here that I'm going to have to deal with in a second. So I'm going to grab my very sharp scissors. Got a bit of fluff in there. I'm just going to take that out. Oh, missed it. Where is it? There he is. Just going to give that a little tweak. There we go. Got rid of that. Now we're going to put a hackle in here. I'm going to use a brown. This is a Met Cape cocked hackle. I want quite a long feather, sort of from the lower end of the cape, in by here. You can see that on these, they're lovely and thin at the top. They get very thick at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. They get very. I'll take it off the cape. We can see. So it's very thick, unlike a saddle, which tends to be very thin and uniform from the tip all the way to the base. The neck capes tend to be a lot wider at the bottom. Obviously, I don't need that, so I can just come in, find the section that I don't need, and just trim it off. And I've got quite a lot of usable feather there. Just gonna, like we've done on previous sections, I'm just gonna pull back and trim these sections to form a comb. And then what I'm going to do there is I'm going to tie that in at the base of the feather, the base of the fly, ensuring that it's upright, locking it down, and then I can work my way back up and I can tie it down as part of the underbody using the ladder of the barbules just to hold it in place, trim it off, and that's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere at all. And I'm going to bring it back down to the base, bit of wax, and then I'm going to use, if I can find it, use some Andrew Scruffy dubbing, but I'm going to use this caddis green, beautiful caddis green here. You use cinnamons, reds, and whatever colour you like, really. And I'm going to use this just to form the body. I want a nice uniform, not highly compacted noodle of dubbing. Just get to the point where 1, 2 locks it in. Just position right. So 1, 2, touching turns all the way up to the head section, and keep it as uniform as possible. There we go. Just gonna hold that down. Okay. Got a bit more room to play with there, so I'm just going to trap that down there. Don't worry if it flares at this end. Just going to grab another little bit of dubbing. Position it and just fill in that little gap. There we go. So we've got our hackle here, and we're going to palmer it towards the top end, with equal spacing. And get quite a few turns along the body. So got a bit of a deer that's sticking out. So that's 2, 3, 4. Now a badger hackle works really well on this as well. 5. Finish at the front. And just take 1, 2 minimum thread wraps, enough to lock everything in place. Trim. Just going to put another one in just to tighten that down. And we've got our hackle in place. I'm just going to lift these end pieces. I'm going to form a head underneath, just to push them up. A bit of fluff in there. Let's get rid of that. We're going to finish at that point. Oh, I just broke a piece there, but 2, 3, 4, 5. Tighten it up. Trim it off. I'm going to take these front sections here, and what we would with an elk hair caddis, I'm going to cut these so that they are not flush, I'm just going to come up and I'm just going to cut them about 2 to 3 mils up. There we go. Anything that's loose that shouldn't be there, just have a little bit of a check. There we go. Check it all through. Got one little loose bit I can just see. Trim. There we go. And what we do then is I'm going to come in and I want to take out all of the lower part of the hackle that's below the body. I'm not going to touch anything directly horizontally on the sides or anything vertically on the top. It's just these bits down here. I'm going to turn it over. I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to bring my scissors in along from the eye, quite wide, and trim them down. Just going to take my time. Quick little look. I've got a couple that are just sticking out there and there. Same here. It's a great fly for just being in the surface film. Struggling or was crippled. Olive or crippled mayfly, crippled up wingfly, beetle indeed. In fact, change out, have it in blacks. Underneath a bush or a tree. Hopefully something's going to come up and hit that. And there we have it. We've got the Dyret. Have a go, have a try, see if you can catch some fish. Okay. Quick little mouthful of wine. Okay, now our final fly tonight, guys. As I said earlier, it's this one. It's been successful for me at Diva in smaller sizes. This is a size 10 just for scale today, and I've put on a red tungsten bead on here. I can use black, you can use whatever colour you like. To be honest, I'm going to use red because they were the ones that I found in my box. I thought, oh, that'd be quite cool. I can use those today. So I'm going to use a size 10, my favourite size 10 Czech nymph hook, my fully mill 5065. And you can tie these all the way down to size 16. And they work wonderfully well. I'm just going to place that there while I just grab a tungsten bead. There we go. Just going to take that back out. Just going to put the tungsten bead. It's not a slotted bead. It's a countersunk red tungsten bead, anodized red, in quite a beautiful blood red color. And on it goes. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. Follows the same sort of processes as most of the other sort of nymphs that are on a curved hook. Just going to come in behind the bead and put a small amount of tying thread down up to the point, in line with the point. Bring it all the way back, about halfway back again. And we're going to put a rib here. And our rib is going to be some of that holographic orange and peacock mylar again, but in a size 16 this time, much smaller. I want the peacock to be on the outside, so I'm going to tie it in with the orange facing me. Just going to tuck it in under the bead. Basically tying everything in to keep the whole of the body an equal to give it an equal width, I suppose. I'm just going to take a tying thread all the way down, round the bend, take it as far as you like, but not too far. Pause, and then just going to bring it all the way back up again. Cover everything over, and then back down again. Doesn't have to be touching turns. I'm just going to drop that away so it's out of the way. Now, for the main part of the body here, I'm going to use some fox squirrel. You can get in these natural fur boxes, or you can get whole fox squirrel skins, which are great, and you can shave them using a little beard trimmer. I'm going to use the fox squirrel because of the nature of squirrel. Using it, I'm definitely going to wax the thread because you'll end up dropping most of it all over the floor. And then I'm going to come in with the fox squirrel. There it is, nice and spiky, and I'm going to lightly just apply it to the thread, and the wax is allowing it to grip as we felt it around the thread. And I'm not dropping as much as I would if I didn't have it. I notice I'm not using my loom wax for this because that's quite, I suppose, it's quite wet compared to a dry wax. And what happens is that you get a lot of clumping in the squirrel. So I'm going to drop all that back, get to the base, and then touching turns. Going to work my way back up. Now I don't want a really fat body here. I want it to taper and get fatter towards the bead, but not too fat. I want it to be a very slim profile as we go up. You can add a little bit more on there. It's always easier to add than to take away. Just going to apply some more squirrel. Around we go. I'm going to take that up just up to the bead. You can see nice and spiky. You're going to get bits that are going to be sticking out. You can just get all worry about overly long bits in a bit. And I'm going to take my rib, and I'm going to rib this counter clockwise, starting at the base. I'm going to put a turn quite close into the base, and then equidistant segments all the way up. Bit of flash, bit of segmentation, all those little triggers that we know work. I'm just going to keep going. 5, 6, 7, and finish just at the bead. And lock that down. Just snip that off. And just draw everything back. Now it's at this stage where very gently, you want to be doing this later on, very gently you can just run your dubbing brush just across it, just to push and pull out a few more buggy little strands. And it gets rid of any loose material in there. You can put it in underneath, just give it a little rub, little hairbrush like that, and just use your fingers then to draw everything back. Okay. Now, this particular version has a feather, so I'm going to use some French, English partridge. I want quite a large feather here. So I'm going to take a feather that's got quite a long section to it. And as we did with the previous fly, I'm going to get rid of all the fluffy bits at the end. And you get your actual sort of hackle plier going to find the tip. You can use a pair of hackle pliers to do this, or if you feel that your fingers are delicate enough, find the tip, draw everything back from the tip, like so, like that. And then I'm going to tie it in at the tip. Now, this is very delicate, so you don't want to put so much pressure on, tension on the tying thread that it snaps it or cuts through it. So just one, two, and oh, it's just caught it. Two, three, and then come back, and I've tied that in. And I'm just going to trim off that waist section, not flush, just leave a little step so it doesn't pull out. And I'm just going to draw all these back. One, two. Going to use as much of the feather as I can. Ooh, it has started to twist there, but that's not a problem. Three, and then just come across with my tying thread, trap that down, come in with my scissors, take off the stem, draw everything back. And as we did on the first fly, I'm just going to use my tying thread and just bring it over those feather turns to push it all back. Two, three. There you go. Now at this point, there's a lot of movement in the bead. Okay, so what I'm then going to do is I'm going to come in with some. For this one, I'm going to put in UVI stubbing. I'm going to bring in this nice pink. You can use whichever colour you like. You don't have to use it. You can use whatever you like. You can put some more squirrel in there, make it really, really spiky. I'm just going to use a little pinch. This little pinch. Oh, right in there. And you don't need a lot. Put a little bit of wax on there. And oh, just got it caught. And I'm just going to apply it to my thread very lightly. I'm just going to catch it in place and then tighten it up on the thread. And I'm going to fill in that space behind the bead with that pink. Yep. I'm going to use it all up, and then let's pack that bead. Put in some turn just behind the bead, and then I'm just going to whip finish behind the bead. There we go. I can cut that off, and then I'm just going to look at that pink. I want it to be a little bit. I want it to flow into the feather, so I'm just going to give it a little stroke with my dubbing brush, so that those strands head into the partridge. The same underneath. Little, just give it a little brush, and use my fingers just to push everything back. Make sure you do the sides, not just the top and the underside. There we have it. So partridge and squirrel stalking nymph, I suppose, but it'll also give you a representation of a hog louse and other nymphs that live close to the bottom. So the next time that you're tempted and you're fishing, you think, oh, I need one of those big gaudy stalking bugs with a massive flashing tail that doesn't really look like anything natural, but you suddenly realise that the fish aren't switching onto them. This could be your alternative. Nice, heavy, tungsten-headed nymph that you can just drop in front, boom, 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 bang, straight into that fish. Okay. I hope you enjoyed all of those this evening, folks. A whistle stop tour through another three patterns, so that makes it 63 now in the Fly Club. And you'll notice if you've been on the YouTube channel, that I've gradually been going through and chapter marking all of the Fly Club evening sessions. And that means that you can go into the description box and it will be hyperlinked, and you can jump to particular patterns, so you don't have to sit and listen to me waffle about absolutely everything and try and find the bit that you want. Um, Spread the word. Push people in the direction of the website, also of the YouTube channel. All that like and subscribe stuff, because it generates lots of interest and ensures that we can get lots of amazing things done. Be back next week. We're heading closer towards the the river season down here in Hampshire. Only a few weeks away now, 3 weeks away, three and a half weeks away. Really looking forward to that. So we'll gradually be moving into the dry fly situations. But of course, if there is anything that you particularly would like to see tied, just let me know either through Facebook or message me directly, or even here underneath in the comment sections underneath here, and we can give it a go. I've already had uh, one person perhaps ask if we can do a pike fly tying session. So although that's a little bit niche, I think it'd be really quite good to see a pike fly tied. And so I've got that one planned in. Well, I'm going to leave it for there, because I've got a glass of wine waiting for me, and and get myself ready for the weekend. If you're out in the water, good luck. Remember, try something a bit different. Thanks a lot.